Oh, good. Good, good. It's recording. Okay.
Okay, I can read the first question if you guys want.
Yeah.
So it says, what's the best way, in your opinions, for asynchronous courses like this one to deal with AI? Second was posting comments on and replies on um, Perusall interesting slash engaging. Do you think people read classmates' replies to their posts? I appreciate the advice.
I said I personally love AI and ChatGPT, and I think it's great for a lot of things. And I use it mostly for my science classes because it helps me understand harder concepts and questions by breaking them down into simpler terms.
Mm.
But for this class, I didn't really use AI that much, because it was more about doing the readings and reflecting on them. But I liked the posting comments on per usual because it kept me more engaged with the reading and helped me focus on what I was actually taking in. And I feel like it's more interactive. Um, and for the classmates' replies, I think some people do read them, especially if the topic sparks someone's interest or if someone disagrees. But I doubt everyone reads every single reply.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I said kind of the same stuff. I said courses like this, like it's hard to use it, but I kind of use it for everything too, in the same aspect, like with science classes, breaking it down. Um, I just think like there's definitely like a risk with it, like without coming like you could definitely like use it in wrong ways and like not using it to actually come up with your own examples and stuff like writing and stuff. For perusal, I said I like it was engaging, but I didn't really like it because it had like so many problems with it too. Like half the time I couldn't even like get into the readings and comment on people's stuff. And then um for people replying, I said I think they were just like kind of replying to meet the bare minimum requirement of just like actually replying to someone's thing. Sorry.
Um, I said that I also, similar to you guys, I use like ATI to study or like make myself study guides, or a lot of times in like nursing, I'll ask it to like describe like the pathology of like a certain disease, and it's like really helpful with that. But in terms of this class, I didn't really use it because like all the reading or all the questions are designed to like find the answer within the reading, and that's not something like AI can really help you with. You kind of have to just figure that out on your own, which is fine for a class like this. Um, like maybe if we had exams, I would use it to help me study, but that's not really the case here. Um, and then for um the pursual, I thought commenting and replying was like pretty engaging. It made me like pay attention to the readings, and like it was helpful that it was like as we went along, not just like reading one big long thing and then like doing one big writing on it, because sometimes that can be like hard to touch on every aspect. So I thought that was a really nice way to use it. Um, as for like the comment or people reading their comments, I said that I don't really think people do because in my personal experience, like once I'm done with the assignment, I'm not really gonna go back to it. Um, but like you said, Anna, like maybe if people are interested in it, they'll go back. But yeah, that's it.
I can read B. So B said, quickly to get us thinking about stuff we'd done across the course, as you'll do for your final project. What's a link you can draw between text one and a group from module one? If it's the same as someone else said, add nuance or something else. I said the People's Temple movement resembled the Shakers in module one, and that in both groups they withdrew from mainstream society to create what they saw as like morally superior and to create like communal like living, I guess. And then in the documentary, we see how Jim Jones preached about racial equality and communal living attracting followers who felt like alienated by racism and economic injustice. I think that was like at 25 minutes. And um the quote that I pulled that goes from that was, "Nobody else cared about Black people the way he did." And I said this recalls how the Shakers, just as discussed in class, created like celibate, economically self-sustaining communities based on equality and shared labor. But I said, however, the Shakers emphasize like pacifism and modesty, and the People's Temple was like really authoritarian, I guess. Like it was really like just Jones was the leader and that was it. And I said at 1 hour in and like 2 minutes, he's ordering people to not leave and staging rehearsals for mass suicide, showing how like their utopian like hopes, I guess, like their ideals turned like bad. Like they didn't really work out. And I said both movements were um millenarian in structure but differed with their outcomes. One remained peaceful and the other one like collapsed.
Yeah, I agree with what you said. I also compared it to the Shakers. Um, I think it was similar to the Shakers in the way that they like sold off their land to like live as a collective community, and they really harped on like everyone had to do their work to like keep up everything that was going on within their community. Otherwise, it wouldn't have thrived. Like when you saw the footage of people like building houses and working on the land and like taking care of the kids and stuff like that. I thought they were very, very similar in that way. Um, I won't repeat like everything you just said because I also have that stuff, but I also thought they were a bit different. In a couple ways that, well, also one similarity is that they were very religiously motivated, in hopes to like grow their own utopia. They had these like morals and values that they followed to stay strong as a community. But as we saw, like that wasn't the case, especially for Jim Jones with people leaving and their loyalty always being tested. It's kind of like they were kidnapped or trapped in there after they things started to go more south when he became pretty psychotic. But I thought like a difference was that Jim Jones was like the psychotic group leader, whereas like the Shakers were more community based, how they had like their groups come together to decide like who stays, who goes. There wasn't really that community leading aspect with Jim Jones' group. And then I also said a difference is that Jim Jones said that sexual relationships like take away from the community, but he was a big hypocrite because like we know what he was doing to other people and how he was abusing them. But that's all I had to say for that one.
I also compared it to the Shakers too, and I just said that they all show that people believing in it, that all the people believed in a better world is coming, and they were told to be patient, and suffer, or sacrifice now to reach that perfect future. And Jim Jones promised a perfect society with no racism or poverty. And he told his followers to stay loyal even when things were clearly falling apart. And at the end, when he called a mass death that revolutionary suicide, he was saying it was better than giving up their dream. And I think that just shows how far the idea of patience and hope for a better world can go, even in a dangerous place. And they both practice self-sacrifice and patience too. But it didn't turn violent or destructive like it did in Jonestown. But I think the main connection is that they all show how powerful the idea of a better future can be, and that the
Yeah,
belief stayed peaceful.
sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I was just gonna say I agree with like the connection that like the main points were similar, but they obviously the two went in different ways towards the end. Um, is there anything else you want to say for that question or move on to the next?
So I think to the next one.
Okay, so C says same as above, this time text 2 and module 2. Does anybody want to start or should I?
I can. Um, I said in America's experimental city, it echoes like the optimism found in the passage Herland, which we talked about in module 2. I said in the film's opening at 2 minutes in, designers describe their vision of a perfectly efficient, car-free city that will liberate people from pollution and congestion. And in Herland, Gilman imagines a society freed from war and poverty and male domination through like scientific mothering and like rational planning. And I said both imagine the future as a space where design and not politics can solve human problems. I said, however, the experimental city failed when confronted with like public resistance. I said that was at 18 minutes in, while Herland avoided this issue entirely by excluding, I guess, by depicting a closed society. And I said these kind of show how secular utopians imagined freedom and equality as products of systems and not struggle. That was really it.
Do you want to go, Anna, or do you want me to?
You can go.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with what you said. I didn't compare it to that group, but that's everything that you said like lines up. I don't know if mine was kind of a stretch, but I connected Text 2 to the Eugenics Society, which was in like Germany when they were controlling the genetics to try and like make the perfect person through breeding. Um, I said although like people in the second video wanted people from all walks of life, the more like government and like structural style was similar to the eugenics. I don't know why it reminded me of the Panama Pacific International Exposition where they were kind of showing off like all the bells and whistles that their society was going to start to use to better their nation or like their community. Um, and it just showed that like both of those groups were finding innovative new technology that would help them like thrive off of their community and overall just have more like cohesive society. The disconnect was like in terms of like what people were going to be involved in that new society, but overall like this the main point aligns with the eugenics. But yeah.
I related it to Equality Part 1 where when we read New Harmony and I said that they both tried to create fairer, better ways for people to live. And Robert Owen started New Harmony to build a community without poverty or unfair working conditions, and that he believed if people lived and worked together fairly, society would improve. And Arpasanti also had a goal of fairness, and Koala wanted people to live close together in the shared buildings to reduce cars and pollution and inequality. And they both believed the design of a place could help fix social problems. And they tried to build new kinds of towns where people shared more and lived more equally. And even though neither fully worked out, both of them showed how people have to use city planning to try to make more life more fair. And I think that's just a clear example of trying to design a city to be more fair. That was towards the beginning of it, of the um video, which I compared it to.
Yeah, I agree with those comments. Do we want to touch on anything else for this question? Or are we all set to move on?
I think we're good. I didn't have anything else.
Okay. Does anybody want to read it or do I can?
I think we'd all agree that if a group leader commits a crime, most notable in this case, rape, they should be arrested and prosecuted. But what about before the evidence of a crime emerges, and what about crimes that group members don't commit on account of loyalty to the leader? In short, do you think the government should take action against voltage groups like People's Temple before evidence of a crime emerges?
Um, I can start for this question. Um, I said it was very interesting to me how both of the leaders of the like original groups were like sexual abusers. And at times like physical abusers as well. We know for Jim Jones, I'm not sure about the second guy, but definitely a sexual abuser. Um, it makes me wonder if like those people actually believe in the society that they're building, or if they're kind of just like psychotic, power hungry people that want to have some sense of control over someone. Um, so that was kind of a question that I had in terms of like the second part of the question. I think that if the group leaders were both still alive, I think that they should be like arrested and prosecuted because they clearly have committed like multiple crimes, whether it's like abusing people or like honestly kidnapping, because some of those people were held there against their will out of fear, which is like kidnapping. I think that they should be charged because they committed some of the most like psychological crimes ever that like will stay with these victims for the rest of their lives and affect them. But I feel like even some of the people in the cult should be punished as well because the cult members would like hit other people if like Jim Jones told them to. And although they were maybe scared, we don't know if they were scared, and they just also had similar mindset where hurting people is okay. So I think that everyone should be looked at to see what the circumstance is and if they should be punished. But I don't think it's as black and white as just being able to say like yes or no. I think it's very circumstantial.
I agree with all that. I kind of wrote similar stuff. Um, I said I don't think the government should pass laws aimed specifically at preventing groups like the People's Temple from forming because this could easily infringe on like religious freedom. And I said the First Amendment protects the right to religious expression, and any law designed to target like cults or religious sects would have to walk a fine line between protecting citizens and suppressing belief systems. And like that being said, I think there's a valid argument for regulating specific behaviors such as like child abuse or fraud or coercive control, regardless of whether they occur in religious contexts. Um, there was a scene in Jonestown that showed like how hard it is to draw that line. I said, and it was that Jones was controlling members' movements and isolating them from the outside world, clearly crossing into like dangerous territory. But those actions unfolded gradually, and many followers genuinely believed they were working towards justice and equality, especially in the early stages. I said laws that preemptively ban groups based on their structure, beliefs, risk punishing people for their ideals before any harm occurs.
I said if a group leader does something like rape, they should definitely be arrested and punished, but it's harder to know to do before there's proof of the crime. But in the groups like the People's Temples, people listen no matter what, and some people would even hit others just because relating to Jim Jones, they would hit them just because they told him to, and that just shows how much control he had and how dangerous it was. And but I just think it depends on the situation. And if people are being hurt and cut off from the outside world or scared to say anything, then yes, the government should step in early, but not all cults do something illegal right away, which makes it tricky. But with Jim Jones, there were signs that things were not okay. Maybe someone should have done something sooner, but overall, I think the government should act if there's clear danger even before a big crime happens.
Yeah, I think you made a good point that a lot of times they start off like being totally fine, and then once they get more cultish, that's when the bad things start happening. So it could be hard to prove. I didn't think about that before. Is there anything else we want to say for this question?
So I think we kind of all hit everything.
Okay. So E says, discuss other takeaways from the films. Write a couple for your notes, each linked to a scene. Each share at least one. Does anybody want to start?
I can start. I said Um, in Jonestown, around like 44 minutes in, a survivor explained how Jones's promises of racial equality made her feel seen for the first time. And this shows that cults don't attract people just through manipulation. They often meet like real needs. And I said another moment was at 1 minute and 23 seconds when Jones uses a loudspeaker to direct the mass suicide. I said it was kind of scary to see how loyalty and isolation enabled such a horrific act. And in America's Experimental City, around 10 minutes in, where the engineers show their blueprints for a pollution-free society, it suggests like genuine faith in progress. But at 19 minutes in, um, the town hall meeting was like had got like a lot of backlash, so I kind of thought it was like that real people don't always want to be like a part of someone else's utopia. And I said these scenes together showed that both religious and secular utopians are often blindsided by like human behavior, the unpredictability of it.
Um, my Wi-Fi just gave out. I don't know why that did that, but I said for Jonestown in the first half of the movie, around 30 minutes, members talk about how they liked the People's Temple because it helped poor people and fought against racism. But over time, it changed into something scary, and that just shows how some groups can start with good ideas, but also become dangerous. And I also noticed that a lot of the people joined the group because it seemed good at first. Um, and they joined because the church helped the poor and fought racism. But I understand why that would make someone want to join, and it made me realize that even something that starts off helping people can become dangerous if one person gets too much power. And then for America's Experimental City, I said, it interests me that the way a place is built can change how people live. And around 15 minutes in, Solari explains how the city is built to help people share space and not use cars, and he thought that would help people live more equally and closer together, and that can show how design can affect daily life. And I also thought it was cool how the way a city is built can change how people live. And Solari also says people would live close together and share things so they didn't need cars, and that just made me think about the how the design of where I live affects how I act and feel. And I never really thought about it before.
Okay, the scene that I connected it to was similar to like what I was saying before about like power hungriness. It was a scene where the lady was like on bus 7 with Jim Jones, and like he um it was a very like apparent how like perverted and controlling he was, because he obviously had her go back there and then did the stuff, and then he said that he was doing it for her, which just showed his like manipulation and how psychotic he was, because obviously like he committed like a very messed up crime. And I think it's just the takeaway. It shows like once people get all that power, they think they're invincible when they're not, and they can like ruin people's lives through that. Not just this lady's life was ruined, but many people were separated from their family or abused or not let they weren't allowed to go home. So yeah. Is there anything else we want to touch on, or do you guys think that we're all set?
I think we got it all.
I think that's it.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
All right, I'll stop.